Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Shrabani, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Francis College for Women, and we would be talking about the paper Comparative Literature, Drama in India. This course is particularly on global perspectives and new technology, and this module covers Girish Karnad's Broken Images. Now, before we start this module in earnest, let's have a look at what we are going to do in this module. We will be looking at, the life and career of Girish Karnad. He is one of the most famous theatre personalities in India. We would also be looking into the thematics of Karnad's plays. We will be looking at the stage direction and the settings which Karnad incidentally is famous for in Broken Images, the plot of Broken Images, and the different themes that is coming up in Broken Images. Now, to start with Girish Karnad, Karnad has always been one of the most famous Indian theatre personalities. He has acted, he has directed, he has written plays, though his mother tongue is Konkani, but he has almost exclusively written in Kannada. He is famous for plays like Tughlaq, Yayati, Hayavadana, Nagamandala, Talidanta, and of course Broken Images, to name just a few. He was born in 1938 and he has been a Rhodes Scholar. He studied in Karnataka University and later in Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar, and on his return he became employed in the Oxford University Press in Chennai, and it was in Chennai where he met and started working with the Chennai based theatrical group called the Madras Players. Later he got into acting, film acting, and U.R. Ananthamurthy's Samskara, a film adapted from it, was the first place where he became involved in film acting. He has also acted in films by Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen, Shyam Benegal, and more recently in Nagesh Tukunur's. Girish Karnad has been one of the principal forces in India who brought back the traditional cultural heritage of Indian theatre. He brought back the traditional classical Indian theatre tools like speaking dolls, like gorgeous costumes, like elaborate settings. He brings out what some critics would call the greater and the lesser of Indian performance tradition. He brings about the classical as well as the subaltern experience of Indian theatre tradition. He also brings about something which we can call a quest for completion in his plays. He talks about how every individual is always looking for an opportunity to complete oneself. Like in Yayati, Yayati exchanges his old age with his son's youth, but in the end neither find completion because the son is unhappy because he doesn't find wisdom with old age, and Yayati is unhappy and is feeling incomplete because he does not find satiation with his youth. In The Dream of Tipu Sultan, there is a quest for identity, and they are fighting, and there is a conflict between what we can call the colonial past and the cultural past. Now we would look into more of these themes in the play Broken Images when we are talking about the play in earnest. Now let's have a look into the setting and the stage directions of the play. To talk about the stage direction, Karnad has never been extremely particular about stage direction, but there are certain things in this particular play that he insists on. He talks about and he gives particular cues about pauses, facial expressions, tears, laughter, gestures like snorts, and there are also stage direction, elaborate stage direction right in the beginning of the play and in the end of the play, but we will talk about it later. And before we start talking about the setting of the play, it is imperative to know that unlike all his other plays, Karnad in Broken Images keeps it a monodrama. A monodrama is where it is one act, one scene, one actor. So ideally it should have been simpler, but it is not. The play actually has a very expensive setting because there are expensive props required in a play, in that play. There is plasma screen which is big enough for the audience and the actor to have a look into. There are several computer screens in the background which is visible to the actor and the audience. There is also a huge tele-table with a very strategically placed chair so that people can see the actor who is sitting in the chair and well, speaking. Now there is also a red light which the actor is not supposed to see, but the audience can see. But Girish Karnad also gives options about lesser, complicated and inexpensive adaptations of the same setting. Before we start the play Broken Images was originally written in Kannada, as most of Karnad's plays actually are, as Orakula Bimba. It was later translated into English called A Heap of Broken Images, and much later it was called Broken Images. So it was originally intended for staging in October 2004 for the opening performance of Rangashankara, but it was not staged before March 2005. After this, it was also translated into Hindi as Bikhre Bimb. Now, 4 interesting things happen with the staging of Broken Images. Number 1, for the first time after 40 years, Girish Karnad is directing his own play. 40 years ago, in his last direction work, he did not even direct his own play. He actually directed the play of Badal Sarkar, the play called Evam Indrajit. Number 2, Karnad is translating his own play in English. Number 3, Rangashankara is producing a play. Number 4, Karnad's particular play is being debuted subsequently in English and in Kannada. Okay, this is the first time that happens. Now, some of the major actresses who played the role of Manjula Naik in this play are Arundhati Nag and of course Shabana Azmi, who adapted Alec Padamsee's adaptation of this play called Bikhre Bimb. Now let's have a look at the plot of the play. Now this play starts in a TV studio. Manjula Naik, who is described to be somewhere in her mid-30s to mid-40s, she walks in wearing a lapel mic, and she's looking confident and well at ease. She takes her time to settle in her chair, and she is introduced by the anchor person, the only time that we see the anchor person on screen, in the plasma screen that we were talking about, as the celebrated Kannada short story writer who has recently written a groundbreaking English novel called This River Has No Memories. And the anchor also introduces Manjula Nayak, that how Nayak has now become extremely popular in the world of Indian writers in English because of her extremely lucrative publishers fee, which has made her financially independent. Now, it is also announced how Manjula Nayak will be talking about her book for 10 minutes or so before a short film which is based on her book will be telecasted. Now, Manjula Nayak starts talking about her book with great gusto. She talks about how This River Has No Memories is not anti-Indian because it is written in English. She actually refused to be accused of writing in English and thereby abandoning her Kannada or Indian identity. She also says how this book has actually been very popular outside India precisely because of its inherent Indianness. She also talks about the parochial narrow-mindedness of the Kannada Sahitya Akademi president, who completely disapproves of her practice of writing in English, but very hypocritically delivers the entire lecture in English. She also says that it is not a crime for a writer to seek even monetary fame and compensation, as she talks about the Kannada word Arthapurna, okay, playing with the word Artha, which might mean meaning and also money. Now, when she stops, while she talks about her novel, she also says that how the central character of this novel, a very sensitive wheelchair bound girl, is actually based on her younger sister Malini, who has passed away recently. She also says how Malini and looking after Malini for 6 years after their parents' death has taught her sensitivity, has given her a perspective, has also taught her to stand in Malini's shoes and imagine a world from the eyes of a wheelchair bound individual. As she stops speaking and she's preparing to leave, something remarkable happens. So far, she was shown in the plasma screen live as she was speaking. Now, the moment she's trying to leave, the image in the screen starts talking to her back. So, literally, she's faced by herself. The image confronts her about her authenticity of feelings about Malini. Now, as she speaks, we understand that Manjula was not exactly fond of Malini. Manjula actually detested Malini and considered her crippledness to be objectionable because she was always jealous of Malini, who was smarter, more sensitive and probably even better looking than Manjula, and has always commanded her parents' attention. after talking about it, the image continues asking her question, and her innate, Manjula's, innate parochialism comes out when she talks about how Malini, and she's very disapproving of it, Malini could not speak in Kannada. Of course she could, but she was not very comfortable with it. She also says how Malini has always commanded the attention of her parents. Her parents, of course, helped her when she married her husband Pramod, who she had earlier thanked for being so supportive, but her parents left the bulk of their inheritance, of their property, to Malini. And her parochialism also surfaces when she says that she actually preferred living in the more Kannada neighborhood of Jayanagar than the more cosmopolitan Kodamangala in Bangalore. And she also speaks about how she was not comfortable with Pramod's growing attachment with Malini. She also says that Malini was very sensitive. Malini was also very frail, beautiful, intelligent, cultured, and she could also speak very knowledgeably and warmly with Pramod, who was hungering for some companionship but could never get it from her, from Manjula. But in all her words, it is hinted that she was extremely jealous of this growing attachment, camaraderie between Malini and Pramod. When the image talks about her choice of language, when she's writing this novel, it comes out that Manjula, in spite of being a professor of English, is actually not very comfortable writing in English. So who wrote the novel? We come to know that it was actually Malini who wrote the novel before her premature death, and Manjula, in her spite towards her sister for taking away her parents' affection, all her friends' attention, and also the love and affection of her husband away from her, she appropriated Malini's novel and for herself and published it under her name. Upon further inquisition, she also comes out with this uncomfortable truth how Pramod's reaction, what Pramod's reaction was in about Manjula's appropriation of Malini's novel for herself. Pramod has abandoned Manjula and has gone away because he disapproved of Manjula's subterfuge. As this inquisition grows more heated, Manjula, in a final attempt to wipe away this questioning image from the plasma screen, rushes to the screen and tries to plug it out, to unplug it actually from the power source. As she's struggling with the sockets behind the plasma screen, suddenly the bottom of her body sinks with the image in the plasma screen, and the image in the screen tries speaking in Malini's voice, and Manjula is actually decimated as Malini takes over. Now, according to the stage direction, in this fanatic struggle of unplugging the plasma screen and the sinking of the image of the plasma screen with the lower half of Manjula's body, the body keeps on gesticulating according to what is being said on screen, and then the entire stage, which is a revolving stage, starts revolving, and there is a cacophony where voices in Kannada and English is being heard simultaneously, and a silent Manjula is shown gesticulating in all the screens behind, behind stage, and one by one all the lights and the screen starts blanking out until there is complete darkness in the stage. Let's have a look at some of the major themes in the broken images are the conflict of languages, the quest for completion, the suppression of memories, the identity crisis, virtual reality versus reality, and celebrityhood. Now, talking about the conflict of languages, we always see that in broken images there is a very clear parochial undertone, anti-parochial undertone, because Manjula is a professor of English, but she is not comfortable writing in English and actually prefers writing in her mother tongue, Kannada. We also find that where she speaks that the Indian audience and the Indian intelligentsia finds people who are writing in English below standard than actual native writers in English. And they always talk about how this is sort of abandoning your own culture when you are talking about and writing in a different language which is not your mother tongue. And it is very interesting that according to Karnad, he got the idea of writing this play when he was listening to Shashi Deshpande's lecture. Shashi Deshpande, who is the daughter of a famous Kannada literary personality called Sri Ranga. The second theme which we talk about is the quest for completion. As we have already discussed that in Tipu Sultan, to a certain extent Nagamandala, where the Nag, the snake, is taking the guise of a man, of a human male to pursue Rani, but it can never have a single personality. In here, Manjula and Malini are also looking for a completion. Malini, who has been silenced all her life in favor of Manjula, who is physically more imposing, and Manjula, who feels physically less intellectually present than the more vibrant Malini. There is a struggle towards the end where the image of Manjula, but the voice of Malini, and the body of Manjula struggle for completion, and in the end Malini takes over Manjula's body in an attempt for completion. If you want to cross-refer, you can also look into the play Hayavadana, where Devadatta and Kapil are also looking for completion. One who has all the brains is looking for physical valor, and the other, who is physically more fit, is looking for intellectual brilliance. Now, the third major point which comes up from this play is the suppression of memories. Manjula does not want to remember certain facts. She, in a way, manipulates the memory to suit her purpose. Manjula did not like Malini, but she wants to remember and tries to justify herself by doing that she was very fond of Malini, and she very conscientiously really takes care of Malini after their parents' death. Again, Malini and Manjula's relationship's truth, and of course Pramod's relationship with Manjula, also which Manjula so far has kind of suppressed, also erupts with a vengeance when the image goes through the very poignant inquisition with Manjula. The identity crisis, the fourth major theme that we talk about in Broken Images, the identity crisis is always present in almost all of Karnad's plays. The identity crisis, one doesn't know what one is. Same for Devadatta and Kapil. They don't know what they are, because after the exchange of their head and their body, they are unsure of their completion. In here, Manjula has been looking for her identity, and more, Malini also has been looking for a voice to speak out. Their identity, their linguistic, cultural, their successful career identities are looking for completion, and it ends with Malini taking over Manjula, the intellectual taking over the physical. The final two themes that comes up are somewhat related. The virtual reality versus reality. What is a virtual reality? If we consider the play, the virtual reality is the one that we see in the plasma screen. That is the virtual reality. But the image in the plasma screen is the one which is speaking the truth, which is looking for the truth. Whereas on the other hand, the real Manjula in the studio is all subterfuge and lies. She has a particular idea in head which she wants to sell to the audience and to the public. The last thing that we can say comes up from Broken Images is the idea of celebrityhood. Girish Karnad, in a way, disapproves of a writer's making a celebrity of oneself. To Karnad, a writer cannot sell himself or herself. But not to be one-sided, Karnad also lets Manjula very vehemently defend her own celebrityhood, as she goes on saying that seeking fame, seeking recognition, seeking money is no crime, because you owe it to your art that it should be heard by everybody. Now let's have a look at the other interesting facts that comes up from this play, and then we can look into the character of Manjula Nayak. One of the thing which comes up is Alec Padamse prolifically and very openly supported this play as one of the plays which talks about the situation of Indian writers in English. It is to him a post-modern play which talks about linguistic crisis and a lot of the other things. Now, if we look at Karnad's other plays and look at Broken Images, we will see that Broken Images is very different from Karnad's other plays. One, it is not a mythological play. It is very modern. Secondly, it is not as elaborate and as vibrant, as colorful as Karnad's other plays. Thirdly, it talks about modern crisis, not ancient crisis. Though, to be very fair, Karnad's ancient crises are also connectable to the contemporary people. Now let's have a look at Manjula's character a little. Manjula is the product of her time. Manjula is a product of the family life that she had. She hated her sister because she always felt outmaneuvered, outshined by her sister. She loses her parents' love, according to her, her husband's love, and all her friends' attention, because her sister was more interesting than she was. And Manjula can only come up with a certain version of her memories, because that is what she is comfortable with. And towards the end, when she tries to exorcise herself of Malini and all the inner voice that comes up, and when she faces herself, that fanatic, desperate move backfires as her identity is decimated. Now in this module, let's have a look, looking back. In this module, we have been talking about Girish Karnad, his life and career, and more particularly about one of his plays, Broken Images. We have looked into the major themes in Karnad's plays, some of his particularities about settings and stage directions. We have looked into the plot of the play and the various very complicated, multi-layered themes that surfaces from this play. Now, to reacquaint yourself with this play, you have a text available to you which you can go through, and to have a wider outlook and to ground yourself more on this topic, you can refer to the Learn More sections and go through some of the books which are prescribed there. You can also test your understanding of this module through the multiple choice questions that there are in the self-assessment sections, and also can attempt writing some of the essay type questions. That is it for this module. Thank you.